Well, hi, everybody. Welcome back to Speed Tips by Bob and Chad, episode number 84, I think is what I read on the deal. So that's awesome. How's everybody doing tonight? Hope everybody got plenty of racing in over the weekend. And I know we had a pretty good weekend down here in Iowa. We had went to Marshalltown and Mr. David Stremme from Pennsylvania was actually out here racing with us this weekend. He did really well. I think he finished third at Marshalltown and ran second at Boone. So he looked really good. Got beat by his own brand of car at Boone. Tom Berry ended up winning at Boone, and so Lethal Cars were first and second at Boone. So that was pretty cool. Those guys, the cars look good, and they did a good job. It was a good show. What's new and exciting with you, Chad?
Oh, we're working hard here. Kicked off another busy week today, and we're getting ready for we got the USMTS 25th race this week that factory support will be going to. So Billy rolls out for that Wednesday, and I'll be there Friday and Saturday for that deal. So just getting ready for the big run here, the big end of the year specials, and Super Nationals is sneaking up on us, and Fall Jamboree. So we're getting ready with the factory support rigs.
Yeah, it won't be long. Super Nationals will be here, and all those big shows will be here. I mean, it's that time of the year to racing's big opportunities are upon us almost. So we're looking forward to that. I always look forward to Boone. It's a little taxing at times because it's a long event, but it's a lot of fun. You get to see a lot of people and hopefully get to see all of some of our people here that watch us online, and always look forward to that. That's always a great time. So you got some new parts you want to show us?
I brought some new stuff. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. So this is one of the new products is for your rear end filler cap. This is just a little deflector that rivets to the top of the deck tin to keep the dirt to go over the top of the cap to keep it from packing in the front of the cap. So just a trick little deflector for that. And we made a couple new chain limiters, just a little bit different design to take the foam rubbers for open comp, like open mods, open late models. This one here is our quick adjust, so it adjusts with the pin. And we also made a threaded adjuster, so this uses our little double adjuster on that one. So everything's kind of going to that rule where it's a 1 inch tall, 2 inch diameter foam. So we made a couple little new limiters there for easier to adjust. Like our 291 cans are hard to adjust, and our 381 that was kind of hard to adjust. So everybody wanted the quick adjust and the thread adjust, so we made the best of both worlds there with these two new trick little.
Really nice.
Yeah, so pretty cool for that. Then we made a lead mold for building lead. I don't know, people still melt their own lead, but this is the kind where it's the two pieces that clamp on a tube, so you got an interchangeable for 1 1/4 inch, 1.5 inch, 1 3/4 diameter. So makes a 25-pound chunk that you clamp to the bars. So we've been working hard. We got all kinds of new products that we've been working on here, and in the Wehrs line and the Trick line and the Trace My Space line. So it's amazing the amount of new products that are on the board to be created, and we're backed up. But we're going to have quite an array for us here at we'll have most of them this week, but we'll have everything that we got rolling new at Super Nationals. So engineering, the Ultraforce side is working on some new stuff too. So got to see a video of that today. So it's along the load stick lines, and it's going to be a very vital tool for analyzing your car, kind of like a pull down rig, but it's going to be a little bit different than a pull down rig. So we're excited about that. So there's a lot of new stuff that we've been grinding on and working on here, trying to get all finished up for the end of the season and get ready for catalog time. So
Awesome. Well, that sounds great and exciting. I'm looking forward to what that new machine is, or what you're talking about there. Sounds like one of those deals that I'm quite sure once the boys see that, we'll have to have one of them.
Yeah, it's kind of dangerous. My engineer used to work at CAT full time and part time for us, and now he's full time with us and retired from CAT. So his mind is going nuts with ideas. So yeah, a lot of new trick tools that are coming. So excited about that.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, if anybody out there has any questions, we've got a good hour here to be able to answer any questions that anybody might have. We haven't been fishing for a while. I'm gonna have to get some of that done this next week.
Did you get all rest? Did you go to work last Wednesday or no?
Oh yeah, I was there. I was probably there by noon.
That was a good night. The Harris Clash turned out good, didn't it?
The Harris Clash was awesome. I'll tell you what, that was a heck of a show. Like I said at the beginning, it was a must-see event, and it turned out to be a must-see event. The sport mod and the modified all had great competition and excellent field of cars. We had 75 modifieds and 52 sport mods. So we had the pits were full and 23 races is what the fans got to see. So for your one ticket, they got to see an awful lot of races in one night, and we were still done by 10:30.
That's awesome.
That was the amazing part of it. It was pretty cool.
I had some late employees Wednesday.
You did.
They took the party bus out there, and some of my employees were a little late. They spun the fun wheel pretty hard on the way out there.
Spun the wheel pretty hard. Yeah. No, well, as long as they had a good time, that's all that matters.
Right.
Brandon Evans, what do you recommend for degree of camber in the right front for a stock car? Brandon, in my opinion, I would get as much as I could get. If I could get 6.5 to 7 degrees, I'd be happy as all get out. You just have to go off of clearance. Those cars now, the new trend is to getting them rolling over on the right front like a modified is. And so the camber is very important. I think we run ours at 6.5 degrees negative camber. That seems to work pretty good. Caster, I think we're at 5 degrees positive caster. Then the left front's a little more difficult because the way you've got to work around that jack bolt. Left front's probably, if you're lucky, if you can get 2 degrees and still get some caster in it. So we're at 2 and 2, I think is where we're at on the left side. But that works pretty good. Like I said, just staying within the rules and using that original A-frame that's legal makes it a little bit of a trip. Yeah, Travis says a great track at Deer Creek. It was an awesome racetrack. There wasn't a rut or a bump in the whole place. I can't say enough about those guys at Deer Creek. I thought they were maybe taking their watering truck to the nth degree there for a little bit, but they seemed to know it. They knew what they were doing because we had an awesome racetrack, so I'm not going to second guess anybody. Okay, let's see here. We got to go back up here because I missed some questions. Greg, Sport Rod, what is better on the front end ride height? Right front lower or right front higher than the left front? We always run our right front is 1/4 of an inch lower than the left front, measuring it. And what we do is measure from a solid surface to the lower control arm bolt. And we try to run 7 1/4 and 7.5 is what our car comes out. And I know there's some other cars out there that are actually a little lower than that. So it just kind of depends on what your chassis builder recommends. But I always have found that running right front a little bit lower works best. Chris has got things to help tight entry. Northern Sport Mud car gets tight in and then gets loose in the center, but I believe that's coming from the tight in. most generally, a tight end situation is the car's too hard on the right rear. Northern Sport Mod, you can't put a wheel spacer on. The only thing you can really do is move the rear end. We've done that a lot, move the rear end. And you'd be surprised, moving the rear end 1/4 of an inch makes a pretty big difference. The other thing is your trailing arm bracket, your right rear trailing arm bracket. Put a little more angle in that so that right rear has a little more rear steer. That would work really well. Any other your thoughts, Chad?
No, that's probably a really good starting point for sure.
Okay. What's the deal with the lower A-frame mounts on the right front that I hear aren't legal on a modified? Have you heard anything about it? Well, I haven't heard anything about it. There was a point in time where people were trying to relocate those lower control arm mounts, and with the IMCA, or I should say, with the AFCO stub that is IMCA legal, you get to weld them on, but there's a specific position that you can weld them on. The problem is if you don't follow the rules, you could actually move them around a little bit. But I can tell you from experiences and conversations over the last 2 to 3 weeks that IMCA is going to start cracking down on some of that stuff again, like they did a few years ago. So I'd be really careful about that if I was. We won't do it because it's just not what we do here.
Well, I know at Deer Creek there was some of them scrambling for plate steel to fix the horn, or the right side rails. They got them tipped for ground.
Yeah, that's another issue that some of the guys they were on that rule for quite a while, and then they kind of eased up. Well, when they eased up, now some of the guys are starting to cheat them up a little bit, and I'm just saying that I would be a little careful about that. The way the tech was at Deer Creek, I can only imagine what Super Nationals has the potential to be.
It's going to be super.
It'll be super, no doubt about it, because they were doing a great job of teching those cars. I give Dave a lot of credit. They spent a lot of time checking those cars and making sure people are aware of the issues that they had.
They do a great job being consistent with how they do things.
They do. I mean, it's just a situation where, some people got DQ'd for certain things, and it's just one of those deals that they maybe had been running it for a while and had not gotten caught, but now they did, and so it's just the way it goes. But at least one thing, like I told a couple people, the advantage of getting teched real hard at Deer Creek is at least you're prepared for what you're going to probably get at Super Nationals, so you get your stuff fixed before you go there. Because there's no fun in beating and welding and cutting. And Braden, pros and cons to a 110-inch wheelbase modified. Well, the con is that they drive really nice because, the longer wheelbase drives very good. On a bigger racetrack, I think they would be really comfortable. The cons to a 108 wheelbase car is it's a little quicker to respond, a little quicker. Handling is a little bit more affected by the shorter wheelbase, but I believe there's some advantages. We used to always build, our stuff was always 109.5, and now everything's 108. I just think the quicker response time. Jeff, Sport Mode, what adjusts to free up center only? Well, tire stagger would be one. Trailing arm height, a little bit of angle in that right rear trailing arm would be another one. The biggest thing, though, that actually creates issues in the middle of the corner is it's a throttle type situation, because that's right when you're getting back on the throttle. So the point where you might have too much load on your left rear spring, take a little load out of it. Maybe take a little angle out of that left rear trailing arm. Some guys have got a lot of angle in them. We run quite a bit of angle in it, but that would be my response. Shocks, maybe you're running like say if you're running a 12-1 or a 15-2 or something like that, maybe have your shock guy build you something that's not quite so aggressive on compression and has a little bit more rebound, so that it just slows some of that reaction time down to get the car so that it doesn't react so fast and overpower the right front, because that's what's happening is the left front's just hooking so hard it's overpowering the right front. Mike, thoughts on a 16-inch soft right rear spring and a 13-inch left rear spring, 25 pounds heavier than the right rear? Myself, I would actually probably go the other way around. I'm not as big of a fan of having a real tall spring on the right side, because I think there's too much spring deflection. You get too much chances for that spring to twist and turn. Plus, then your spring center, the spring table is going to be all out of whack, because your right rear is going to be way high and your left rear is going to be way low. So it's not going to want to roll. Even though it's soft, it's going to roll because it's soft, but you're not getting any load to the tire. You're getting body roll, but you're not really getting weight transfer. So I go the other way around. If the rules allow it, like on our modifieds, we run the 16-inch soft, like a 125, 100 in that neighborhood. And then the right rear, we run 200, 225, quite a bit stiffer. Jeff, I hear bolt is located too low. What is the measurement from the frame to the bolt on the rear mount of the right front? Any idea? Boy, Jeff, if I was at the shop, I could answer that question, but I don't. That measurement doesn't stick in my head. I can't answer that question, Jeff. I apologize. Feel free to give Brandon a call tomorrow at the shop, and he could definitely get you that answer for you. Yeah, I'm not totally sure what it is. Converting a GRT A mod to a USRA B mod. What's the best way to put the 2-link brackets on the quick change? Start with the pinion at 0 and put the bracket square. Okay, put the square with the pinion and then set the pinion angle with the pull bar, or set the pinion angle with the set of brackets. Well, you'd want to actually set the brackets to the point where I would set the brackets level with your 7 degrees of pinion angle on the rear end itself, so that your brackets are always level, because otherwise if you go to change your holes, they're not going to have, the arc's not going to be right. And so you're going to want to make sure that all that stuff is perfectly level. And like if you use Chad's brackets, they come with a level in them. So, that level is very important. And then we set the pinion angle, like we've actually got a jig for this, but it'd be like if you did it up on a big bench, you'd set the pinion angle at your 7 degrees or 8 degrees, whatever you decide to use, and then put those at 0 with the pinion angle already in them. Bob, my new car is awesome so far, but I'm the slick car, goes into the corner great, a little loose in the center, and tons of drive off. Would the getting free be caused by putting too much angle in my panhard bar? Highly unlikely. I mean, it's possible that you could, but you'd have to have a lot of angle in it for it to give you an adverse reaction. And I don't think you're running that much angle. So I would have to say that that little loose in the center, that's more of a side bite type situation. Try lowering your right rear trailing arm on the bottom trailing arm on the frame. That might be of help. What suggestions would you have, Chad?
Yeah, that's probably the deal there, I would say. I don't know what else you would try.
Yeah, you could take a little angle out of the left lower, because it might still be steering the car free. So if you take a little angle out of the left lower, that would actually take a little steer out of the car, a little dynamic steer out of the car. That might tighten it up there. Tim, hello fellas, looking forward to hanging out at the Super Nationals. Yeah, we only thing that I can really hope for at the Super Nationals is that it doesn't rain. When it rains there, that is not the most fun place to be at. If it doesn't rain, it's a blast. I mean, you get to, as a race fan, you get to see more races in one night than you can see in 2 months anyplace else. And going 3 nights a week, I mean, they're so well organized. They do such a great job. They click those things off. They farm the racetrack every 10 shows, so the racetrack doesn't deteriorate so bad. And I mean, it's just an amazing event how they actually put it together. I'm in awe every year how they put that thing together.
Tim's a Schaefer oil guy, so we're actually in the process of switching to Schaefer's on all of our stuff here, all the sliders. So we're working on a rebuild kit that we're going to offer starting at Super Nationals with the Schaefer's in it, and he also makes that dry lube that you can run on the Torrington bearings. So definitely looking forward to Super Nationals unveiling our new slider rebuild kits.
Awesome. I know we had tried some Schaefer oil, shock oil and stuff, and I don't know. I couldn't actually tell you where that project is actually at. I mean, I see there's a pail there, and I don't know. I know they've been trying it, and they've been in contact with them. So I don't know what. A lot of times anymore, I find out when I get to write the check. Hey, Chad, Trick Outdoors might be able to make a good ball head with quick release to mount rifle and crossbow to a tripod.
Yeah, there's some pretty nice tripods already out there in the industry. I don't know how we would do them any better, but the Trick line is growing. We got a lot of new stuff we're working on there too. We just debuted our new tent shelf for inside the turkey tents to hold your accessories and that kind of stuff. And we're working on releasing our GoPro mounts and Tacticam mounts for inside the tents. And we actually just prototyped our first climbing sticks. So pretty excited. It's just another avenue. My kids are really into the outdoors, so it's kind of got me back into it. So we're looking forward to adding to the craziness of September, like we really needed more to do with all the racing specials. Now we're gonna try and kill bears and deers. So yeah, but it's fun. Check out the Trick Outdoors. Go like the Facebook. Check out the site. It's growing. So just a fun, different avenue for us.
Cool. Brady, what are people using really soft right front smash down to the same and throwing the right heights out the window and using the smash numbers are modified? I don't know. You got an answer for that one?
I mean, when we could tie the right front down, that was really awesome. But
Yeah.
when you manipulate that ride height that much, you're changing the roll center. So I mean, are the guys actually winning, or are they starting with a lower ride height and a lower end number? Are they on a bump stop? There's a lot of variables there, and if you can't, in my opinion, if you ain't bump stopping and you can't manipulate your ride height, so you don't have the roll center all screwed up when you go to initially drive into the corner, that I just don't know if there's any value in having a super soft spring just to say that you have a super soft spring. So it's kind of it's like I always say, it's a balancing act, and if you don't have everything balanced, it's not going to be very good. And I'm a bigger fan of a lower right front ride height and having that spring table and that roll center ready to turn into the corner, because 9 times out of 10 the cars do not turn going in the corner. I mean, it's just the nature of the game, and if you can rotate, you're going to have more traction just because you're rotating and you're not inputting so much wheels. So not a huge fan of the super soft right front unless you can do the bump stop and hold the ride height down. I don't know what kind of car what sanctioning body you're running, but you would have to manipulate that ride height so that you don't have a high roll center.
Yeah, that's definitely very true. And of course, the thing that a lot of real soft right front springs, the problem with that is the car gets over on the right front, but it's not transferring the load to the right front tire. Well, then all of a sudden we've got the left rear out powering the right front, and then you get a push. So the car goes in, rolls real hard, which in turn rolls to the right rear, sticks to the right rear. You throttle up, and the right rear is stuck, and the left rear is wanting to go forward, and the right front can't keep up with any of it. And all of a sudden, now you kind of got to push. And so, like Chad said, it's all about balance. I mean, balance is the key. And I just think not saying that some of this doesn't work. I mean, because I know some of those guys have some real soft stuff, and they're pretty quick. I know one car that's running a really soft right front spring, and he's pretty quick. I mean, he does a good job. I haven't quite figured out how that's working, but it is working for him. And I've never been able to figure out that real soft right front stuff myself, unless you can manipulate it. Let's see here. Okay, Craig, when you normally run about 2 inches of stagger, what adjustment would you make when the car gets enough stagger out of the tire you have available? Okay, I better read that one again. When you normally run 2 inches of stagger, what adjustments would you make when you can't get enough stagger? Oh, got it. Well, that's where I would run my right rear trailing arm at a little bit more of an angle to try to get more steer in the car, like what it would have if you had stagger in it. That would be my go-to. I'd probably put a little bit of trail in the car maybe to compensate for the lack of stagger. That's not my favorite thing to do because I still think the car is going to come off the corner and try to tail out a little bit on you. So I'd rather run the stagger with a little bit of lead, just because the way these cars work nowadays dynamically, they've got plenty of trail in them to begin with. So that would be my example. The IMCA Sport Mod, running more angle in that right rear trailing arm is pretty much what I would recommend. Modified 10. I run a 90-10 with an extension so that it's the same angle and length as my pull bar. Is it better to run to cage above the drive shaft, 16 BMS. What are the different reactions it creates? You got an answer for that one, Chad?
Well, yeah, running the 9010 next to the pull bar takes the chassis load out of the equation. So it only then affects the axle wrap. So the theory there was like as we evolved and the cars stayed up on corner entry and they don't fall on the left rear like they used to manipulate that rear end when it's decelling, because the cars stay up, they didn't have enough influence on the decel of the pull bar. So then the theory was to put it next door to the pull bar so it controls that axle wrap and actually does the dampening of the decel so you can drive in the corner harder. But honestly, it's still a driver feel. Some guys love it, some guys hate it, and it doesn't influence the left rear. So as that car comes into the corner and it still sets a little bit, that shock hooked from the chassis is influencing the left rear tire also, as well as it's influencing the pull bar. So you kind of got to do it both ways, I feel. I mean, I talk to guys all the time and they're like, I hated that, or I like it this way because I like to feel like it's driving my left rear in the racetrack. So that's one of them that, it was kind of we did it because the cars weren't falling down and we wanted to control that decel a little better. So it's kind of a driver preference thing, but it isn't like you just put the shock in one spot and go in the feature either. It's, it's a balancing act of that decel into the corner.
And running it from the top of the rear end to the frame versus from the top of the rear end alongside the pull bar, one of the big differences is side bite. You're going to have more side bite with it hooked to the frame on the right rear tire than you would with it alongside the pull bar itself. That's just, and that's the reason why some guys like it and some guys don't like it, just because there's a little bit of a side bite difference there. Okay, sport mod left rear spring. A lot of people running like 100 or 125. Was running a 225 left rear, right rear was a 200. Changed to a left rear to a 175. Okay. We've got some guys that are running that 125. We've had guys try that 100 and 125. I think the 100, in my opinion, for our cars is too soft. I think you have to put so much load in it that when it's fast, it's bad fast, but it's not as consistent as the heavier spring would be. So, 125, 150, that 175, we used to run 175 with a right rear 200 for years and it worked very, very well. The right rear 200 is going to get you a little bit more body roll. The car is going to feel like it's over on the right rear a little bit more. It actually isn't going to be on the right. I mean, it's not going to be on the right rear tire anymore, but it will definitely be on the right rear more and give you that feel that it's on the right rear more. Matt, is it beneficial to run gun drilled strange axle in an IMCA stock car, or is that just run solid axles? I have myself not had enough experience running the different gun drilled axles. I've always shied away from them just because of the fact that it's an inconsistency that I don't know that I would have control over. We're running solid axles. I know what the axle is going to do and how it's going to hook up that individual tire. Now, there's a lot of guys that are really fast that are running the strange axles. I'm just saying myself, I've not experimented and not played with them enough to really give you a good opinion. What can you tell us?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely some tuning of the traction there, and you can tune the left from the right. You need to be careful with the stuff. You should draw a line on it for sure. Our axle checker has the slot in it So anytime you go to them new ones, you can draw a line on it, and when you put it in, you can monitor how much it's twisting. So them axles are a spring. We've said that before. We say it again. They're traction in the axle, whether it's solid or it's a thin gun drilled like that. That's grip. That's a spring rate in the car. It's traction. So you gotta log that in your notebook and write down how many nights and put a line on it, scribe a line, put a Sharpie marker line on it, something so that you know when that thing is twisting and when it's time to get rid of it. That's part of the reason a lot of these cars come out of the box and they're dynamite, and then 20 nights down the road, the springs are worn out, the axles are worn out, and they can't line up, and they wonder why. Well, it's time to put $400 or $500 worth of stuff into the car, and axles is commonly overlooked.
Yeah, very commonly. The only time that's ever looked is if it's broke. The AJ running. Oh, Patrick, what about the heavy right rear spring on a sport mod? We have run heavier springs. I have not been successful with that. The biggest thing with a heavy spring, you got to understand where your spring's at. How far is it from the center of the tire to the center of the spring? If you're inboard quite a bit, you're going to have a stiffer spring. If you're outboard, you're going to have a softer spring. Our right rear spring measurement's 12 inches, and we run a 225. I've had some guys run 250s. On some racetracks, I think that works pretty well. But overall, I think the 225 has given us a better balance, and that's just my opinion. Mr. Strebby, I'm sure glad we got to see you out here in Iowa. That was awesome. I seen this bright number 35 car, and I'm like, well, that looks like Strebby's car. And sure enough, it was. Should you set lead with the left rear lower and trail with the right rear lower, or just use the right lower for both adjustments? I do it like you just said with, if I'm going to lengthen the wheelbase on the left side, I lengthen it on the left side. If I'm going to shorten it, I do it on the right. I do it on the right side just because of the fact, or if I'm going to put lead in the car, I will lengthen the left rear. If I'm going to put trail in the car, I'll lengthen the right rear. The reason why is because IMCA and most sanctioning bodies have that 72-inch motor setback rule from the center of the housing to the back of the motor plate. And if you get too far off, or like you go shortening your right rear, and the way they measure them is out there on that right rear is where they can get at it pretty easy. And you could end up with a 71 3/4 inch deal and get DQ'd. So I always, whatever, I lengthen them depending on what I need to do.
You missed AJ.
I missed AJ.
Right ahead of Stremy.
AJ, we run a 2-link in a class called EcoMod in Texas, and the trailing arms have to be mounted in the same spot on the chassis and the rear end. And both bars have to be the same length. What kind of angle would you be able to run with the trailing arms with this rule? Well, you're pretty limited there. The way I read that rule would pretty much mean you. I know Wasota's kind of got a rule very similar to that, but they've got like a 5-degree variance. So you can run the left rear 5 degrees more than you can the right rear. And I would try to do whatever you can get by with rule-wise and put more angle in that left rear if at all possible. But other than that, you're pretty well stuck with what you got to do as far as the rules go there. Yeah, but I would probably run, but in answer to your question, I'd probably run 7 degrees 8 degrees of trailing arm angle in both of them. I'd rather have a little bit more angle in it than a little bit less, because it's going to give you a little bit of traction. But you're not going to want to have too much angle in that right rear, otherwise it's going to want to keep turning on you all the time. Okay, Sean. IMCA Southern Sport Mod with really slick quarter-mile racetrack. Best way to gain side bite without giving up drive off. Well, and once again, the way the rules are, you're a little limited in what you can do with that rear suspension. The biggest thing is Chad was talking about his weight molds that he's building. The best thing you can do there is to adjust your weights. Maybe move a little bit of weight to the right side to try to gain some side bite. As long as you're not, and that's the deal where you can move 20, 25 pounds and it might make a ton of difference in side bite, but it's not going to hurt your forward bite all that much. So, because the car's still going to have rear percentage when you're only moving that small amount of weight. But a 20-pound chunk will be something that the driver can notice the difference in. It definitely makes a big difference. Justin, well, glad to have you on here. That's awesome. We enjoy having all you guys on here. It's a lot of fun, and we get to talk about all kinds of cool stuff. What springs do you suggest, AJ, what springs do you suggest on the left rear or the right rear on a two-link car? Spring height maximum 13 inches. I would probably run somewhere in the 150 range for my left rear and somewhere in the 200 to 225 pound range for my right rear. The thing with the 13-inch springs, I would definitely use Chad's right rear drop cup, so that I would make sure that my spring table is lower on the right side, or at least equal to on the right side. Because if you have just the flat one, when you get the squash of that softer spring on the left rear, your spring table is going to be out of whack, and the car is not going to want to be consistent about rolling over on the right rear.
Yeah, we made them extra drop cups now, so we can really fine tune that with
Right.
The top mount, the middle drop, and then the super deep drop. So
yeah,
definitely, if you're gonna
super deep drop,
if you're gonna run a 13-inch on both sides, you're gonna need to manipulate that right side cup, like Bob said.
Kenny, IMCA stock car, ball joint links top and bottom. Oh boy, you're talking to the wrong guy on that one. I can give you ball joint links on a modified, but the stock car, I'm not going to lie, I have no idea what they're. Troy Jervis is kind of the mastermind behind the stock car market. Him and Bobby, they work with that stuff. I would ask one of those two guys. I don't know the actual numbers. It's something I can probably figure out, though. But I don't actually have those numbers on the top of my head. Joseph, 2008 Harris Sport Mod, 9-inch rear end for Wayzata Midwest modified rules. I'm battling weird, slightly tight issue in the middle of the corner, but the car is perfect everywhere else. Any insight on why that would be happening? Well, once again, it's a possibility. It could be a shock issue, where you might be running a super stiff compression shock. And it just depends. I could do a whole hour seminar on shock technology, because of the way these shocks are built anymore. If it's built with a lot of nose in it, The problem is going to be is sometimes that thing can, under throttle, it can hook up so hard that it hooks that left rear up and it makes that car slightly tight. Especially, usually anything that's in the middle of the corner is a throttle tight situation. More stagger, that would help. Trailing arm, once again, you could lengthen your right trailing arm. With soda, you're pretty limited in your heights of what you can run, so you're pretty set there. But like I said, the shock absorber, you might want to go with something that has a little bit less compression and maybe a little bit more rebound in it, just to settle it down in that split second. And it doesn't take, it doesn't take a lot. Even if you didn't change the compression, even if you just had your shock builder put more rebound in it, if you've got a 2 valve on rebound, go to a 3 or a 4, it might just be all you really need. It's a pretty fine tuning deal in that middle. Patrick says heavy right rear spring on a Sportman. That's what we always run, a heavier right rear than what we do our left rear. Like I said, we put a little bit more load in the left rear, and that seems to work pretty good. Depends on, and the thing of it is, our 2023 car likes a 225. Our 2022 car likes a 225. Our 2023 car likes a 200. The 23 car is a little bit more rigid. It's the only reason I can say, that's the only thing I can really attest to why those cars like different right rear springs, but they definitely do. Let's see here. Have a 4-link dumping on the right rear. First thing I did was move the rear end to the right and no change. Next thing I put 2 turns in the right rear, still no change. We are at 7 inches of J-bar split, 1/4 of an inch above the pinion on the quick change. Right side bars are at 17 degrees and 3 degrees uphill, and it's a 225-pound right rear spring. Well, that's pretty much sounds like, the J-bar split's probably a little much. I'd probably take that down to 6, 5 even maybe. Your height is up there right. Everything you did is correct. I can't actually tell you what I would say to be. I'd have to think about that one, Ryan.
Yeah, the top rod on the right rear up 1 hole in the frame.
Yep.
Otherwise, if the left rear has a lot of influence and it's picking the left rear up too much and dumping on the right rear, yeah, sometimes that's hard to find that imbalance there between that. I don't know how much lead you got in the car. There's a lot of variables there.
Yeah, all the stuff that you say is good. 17 degrees. I'd probably be 18, 19. But other than that, I don't know what to tell you. Wished I could. I'll have to think about that one a little bit, Ryan. Austin, what's a good starting point for a spring table in the rear? How much lower should the right side be than the left rear? Also, what's a good starting point for degrees with the right rear spring should be leaned inward? I like that right rear spring leaned inward about 10 to 12 degrees, to be honest. I think that works very, very well. We've run it as much as 15 degrees and had success with that too. And I've run it with 5 degrees and been successful. The thing I don't like about it is if you go to like 5 degrees or even 10 degrees, it can kind of get to be a little bit of a povo stick type thing on the right rear on a rough situation. And sometimes that can create issues that you don't need to have. I like the angle with the left rear and the right rear being as close to the same angle as possible. I know left rear we run a little bit straighter, but that right rear, I would say in that 12-degree range is pretty good.
Spring table.
Spring table.
First question was about spring table. Same guy.
Oh, same guy. Oh,
Yeah.
spring table. Well, I always tried to get that inch and a half measurement was what I always shot for. I never wanted to go over 2 inches, but it needs to be at least between an inch and 2 inches. If you get too much spring table difference, the car is going to get lazy on you and it's going to flop over on the right rear and lay there a little long. So you got to be a little careful with that. But when we did some testing years ago with shock, when we could adjust the shocks and springs up and down and stuff like that, we moved the car an inch and it was a daylight and dark situation. I mean, it changed that car immensely. And so I've always pretty much stayed in that 1 to 2 inch range.
Previous guy, Ryan, maybe you need to measure your spring table too on that. The question just before this, if it's falling on the right rear, maybe the spring table is just do a quick ground up to the center of the shock measurement and see where your spring table is.
Yeah, it's very possible that the right rear, you maybe moving the whole spring up even on the cage might help that car quite a bit too.
Put it back on the left front.
Yeah, that's a good point. Let's see. Austin, that was an IMC modified. Okay. Bobby, will more angle in the J-bar help tighten a car up on entry? Yes, it will. Dropping the J-bar on the rear end has more influence than raising it on the frame. But of course, you don't want to get too low. But I never try to run ours any lower than the actual center of the pinion. But in that neighborhood, it's pretty good. But lowering it, in answer to your question, yes, it will tighten it up. UMP car, tight on entry and push on the throttle off of any changes. Push on the throttle off, tight on corner entry. Well, the tight on corner entry is probably too much right rear. I mean, the car's stuck on the right rear too hard. Need to raise the panhard bar, do something with the J bar or whatever. Put a wheel spacer on the right rear. 1/2-inch wheel spacer would be good. And if it's tight off the corner, that's just the left rear is just out driving the right rear. So I'd raise my angle on my right rear upper bar up to like the 18 or 19 degrees. You need to get more traction. The right rear has too much side bite and not enough traction is what the problem is.
Yeah, I don't know if you have a +1 right front lower on, but a lot of the +1 right front lowers, you put that right front so far out there and it gets so far outside of the right rear that the cars are just so tight then. So that might be something to look at too.
Yeah, most definitely. Metric stub IMCA sport mod with Nova lowers. What do you recommend for lower ball joints and pin heights? I would probably run a +1/2 either on both sides or at least a standard on the right front and a +1/2 on the right lower. That would be my suggestion. Because that car, even with the lowers, your spring base is so narrow on that car that it's the wheel rate different because where the spring is located on a metric car compared to a Chevelle, the spring rate has got to be stiffer so that your wheel rate ends up being the same. But in talking about your roll center, I would probably recommend plus half on the right side and a standard on the left side. I mean, other way around. A plus half on the left side and a standard on the right side. When scaling in dynamic and pulled down, I was told that you're looking for your right front, right rear, and left rear corner weights should be as close to the same as possible. Does that sound correct? No, not actually. Your right front, I'm trying to think of the last scale sheet that I seen. The right front, the two front tires end up being relatively close together, and the left rear, depending on how much how much load you have in it, I mean it'll vary anywhere from 50 pounds of left rear bite to 200 pounds of left rear bite. If you've got a real soft spring with 2 inches of load in it, setting that thing standard ride height, it's on the scales, it's going to be pretty heavy on that left rear. Scott, Chad, are you coming to the Captain of the Creek?
No, we're not going to be there.
Justin, hobby stock, factory stock style class, how much left rear bite with a radial tire? From what I understand, those guys try to run around 150 pounds. Is what I have been told. Now, I could be wrong because, once again, that's not a car that I have a lot of experience personally with. I'm just going off of what I've been told, by some of the guys that run that division. Okay, Cody, on IMCA modified, what's the main reason guys are spacing their right front out? Does it allow you to run a different spring to help weight transfer to the right rear? Well, what it actually does is you're able to run the same spring, but your actual wheel rate is softer because you moved the wheel further away from the spring. So the car actually thinks it has a softer spring in it because the right front tire is further outboard than if you, if you had a 2-inch wheel compared to a 3-inch wheel, your actual wheel rate would be a lot different. It'd be a lot softer with that 2-inch wheel. And plus, you're widening the front end out. And when you widen the front end out, it gives the car a little bit more stability. It doesn't make the car try to roll and flop around as much. I mean, it just seems to drive the car a little bit better, I think, with the front end being a little bit wider. Let's see here.
You missed Joseph.
Joseph. Would putting a turn or two in the right rear spring slider help with getting tight in the center of the corner? You can, yeah, it definitely can do that because you're raising that right rear up a little bit. You're putting more load on that right rear tire, and so under traction, you're loading that right rear tire more, so it's going to try to help turn the car depending on how much stagger you have. So yeah, it definitely could help you. Let's see. How much is a typical chain droop ran on a 2-link? Usually around 18.5 to 18.75 inches is the most common number that we see as far as the actual droop load on the left rear. Yeah. 18.5 to 18.75 seems to be about where our cars end up running. Well, guys, I'll tell you what, you guys have had some great questions tonight. It's went very fast, and I appreciate the questions. We had some really good questions tonight, and a great group, good numbers. So we will see everybody the 28th 2 weeks from tonight. It'll be our pre-Super Nationals show, which I don't know if that's really going to be any different than this show, but it sounds good. So we'll talk a little bit more about the Super Nationals and what the Super Nationals do and that kind of stuff, fun stuff. And Chad will probably have some more new products that he'll be willing to share with us, maybe. He might save them, though, till Super Nationals, so then you guys all have to come out to the Super Nationals and see us in person.
Got to keep one or two.
Yes, no doubt about that. So anyway, thanks again for watching. We appreciate you guys, and have a good week, and hopefully racing next weekend is going to be great.
Thanks, everybody.